Welcome to the All Kids Can podcast, dedicated to supporting parents on their journey to nurture happy, successful children in every facet of life, particularly their journey through their education. Whether you're navigating the complexities of a recent diagnosis or you're finding that your child is struggling to have success with their learning, this podcast is for you. As a parent, you have incredible power and influence in your child's life. And with the right knowledge and strategies, you will be empowered to guide your child towards their best life. I'm your host, Christy Howarth, accredited dyslexia therapist, special education teacher, family coach, and mum of two brilliantly neurospicy kids of my own. Are you ready? Let's dive in. You're listening to the All Kids Can podcast, and today I've got Zoe Wragg here with me. I'm very excited to be talking to her today because she's a former prep teacher turned parent educator who helps parents ease into the transition to school and teaches parents how to support their beginning readers. So welcome to the podcast, Zoe.
Thank you so much, Christy. It's so wonderful to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Can you tell me, Zoe, a little bit about your background and how you got into teaching reading and how you help parents prepare their kids for school?
Yeah. So a little bit about me is that I'm a Brisbane local, and I taught in inner city Brisbane public schools and in Queensland, and I was mostly in prep or the early years in grade 1 and 2. And during those, the last sort of 10 years, what I really noticed is that I saw two main problems when I was teaching. Is that I saw that parents were quite anxious and unsure about how to prepare their children for starting school. And not only was it an unsettling time for parents, but it was also unsettling time for children, but also for parents as well. So I sort of wanted to help educate parents too. And then once children got to school, I also noticed that parents sort of struggled around how to teach their child how to read, because maybe there's this thought that once a child goes to school, it's just a sort of up to the teacher and whatnot to educate their child and teach them how to read. But the actual fact is that your child most likely will need your support and encouragement. And so being able to arm parents with some tools and strategies that are actually evidence-based and helpful would be really powerful. And the reason I really started my business is because I saw those two problems, but life changed for me after I've got two kids. I've got a 1-year-old girl and a 3-year-old boy. And when I went on maternity leave, for years, even prior to that in the classroom, I just instinctively felt like I wanted to create my own business and take out all the wonderful things that I loved about being a classroom teacher and sort of just make my own thing. And I didn't have the courage to do it when I was teaching full time. And once I had my boy Charleston, who's nearly 3.5, I just went, you know what? Now's the time. I'm going to start creating something because I feel really passionate about this. I love helping parents. It was one of my favorite parts about the job, forming connections and helping parents. So that's how my business Educate was born.
Yeah, I think we've got a lot in common, Zoe, because I also left the classroom when I had my two boys as well, my first boy and then my second later on. And I thought, now's the time. If I'm going to do it, I'm going to be doing it now because leaving the classroom as a teacher can be a little bit scary going out on your own. But we do get the benefit of being able to have that full control to make sure that we're teaching kids really effectively according to evidence-based practices that we know. When you were in the classroom, Zoe, were you teaching evidence-based practice, or was that before I like to call it a bit of an awakening, before you realize that, hey, what we're doing in the classroom is probably or is definitely not how all kids learn to read through that balanced literacy approach, and we need to be doing it a different way. How were you teaching in the classroom?
I mean, how I learnt to read even as a child
Mm.
was based on those guessing and memorizing techniques. How
Yeah,
I was taught to teach how to read even at university,
yeah.
so that was just, probably 14, 15 years ago starting university.
Mm.
I was learnt those guessing and memorizing techniques. So
Yeah.
I was using them as a teacher, and I think you know as well, Christy, that these techniques are sort of still happening in school. So for the listeners, that sort of means like when you're teaching your child how to read and looking at words, you might be using strategies like, let's look at the picture. What can you get for a clue? Look at the size of the word. Is it long word or a short word? Does it have tall letters or short letters? Reading actually has nothing to do with guessing. And my sort of awakening has sort of happened sort of in my, like, maybe last or second my like, sort of my last year of teaching before I had a child. Like, I just went,
Mm.
"Something's not working here," because whilst these strategies might work for some kids,
Mhm.
the majority, like, there's probably, like, 7 or 8 kids in the class who these strategies are not working for. They need a whole lot of repetition. There's a disconnect here, and it's sort of, I was really frustrated because I thought, I'm working hard, the kids are working incredibly hard, parents are working incredibly hard at home as well, um, and there's obviously something missing here. So I actually probably had that awakening, like, on maternity leave, going, there's got to be a better way,
Yeah.
and looking into, um, those evidence-based practices like the science of reading and whatnot, and really upskilling and learning, after I actually left the classroom.
Yeah. Yeah. And we know better, we do better. And that's what, I think as teachers, there is a lot of guilt. But because, we may have been those teachers back, rewind 10, 15 years that were saying to parents, oh, it'll click, it'll all work out.
Mm,
They're fine. But when actual fact, we know now that that is not always the case. In fact, it's rarely the case that it does click, and we should never be waiting. And that leads me into your specialty, which is really a prevention of reading difficulties. So, Zoe, I work more in the space of remediation. So I tend to capture kids when they get around that grade 3 mark, when things are becoming very obvious that that balanced literacy approach is not working for that child. Heck, what do we do now? Oh my God, we're getting into that point in those upper years of primary school, and my child still doesn't know what to read, how to read.
yeah.
However, you are capturing those kids that are in the younger space. So, in the preventative sort of space when they're just getting ready for school and maybe in that first year of school.
Yes. I have 5 tips for the listeners today. I mean, there's so many things out there, but I just sort of thought of 5 that, sort of align, that of actionable takeaways that they could take away from today and go, "Hey, I could do something today or tomorrow with my child," that you can start doing.
Mm.
But just sort of to backtrack, I realized, my favorite day of the year at school was reading testing day. And it wasn't because I was testing kids on reading, it was because I got 10 minutes of uninterrupted time with each child. And it was
Mm.
on that day that I realized how powerful a parent's role is. Um, because I learnt more about my students in that 10 minutes
Mm.
of just focusing on them than I did for some kids, like, especially, like, generally, like, maybe quieter children and whatnot who maybe don't feel as open and loud in sort of group settings. I learnt more about most of my students in those 10 minutes than I did in a term. And I
Mm.
just thought that is so confronting, but
Yeah.
also really, empowering. I just want parents to know that you have 5 minutes is magic. 5 minutes, a few times a week in helping your child,
Yeah.
is really powerful. Um,
Yeah.
so just sort of before I go into the 5 tips, I would like to, talk about, like, I know that some parents might be going, when they're starting school, "Is my child ready?" And
Yeah.
I'm sort of on some of my personal philosophies is rather than focusing on the age, I think about the stage of the child. So I
Okay.
like to think about the whole child and think about like these sort of 6 key areas. So I think about um, a child's communication, their spoken language. Can they speak in sentences? Can they sort of, and then that sort of ties into their emotional skills, like can they verbalize sort of how they feel? Or and then those social skills as well, because everything kind of ties back to that communication. If somebody can't, and those language skills, um, so communication, emotional skills, social skills, and also those physical skills like our fine motor and gross motor. So fine motor meaning our small muscles in our hands, and then there's gross motor like those big muscles in our body. You know, having the strength, the strength to sit up in a chair or sit on the
Mm,
carpet and
mm,
swing on the monkey bars at lunchtime and play with your friends. Having those skills as well. And
mm,
then also those cognitive skills, being able to follow a two-step instruction or a three-step instruction. First we do this, then we do this. And then also those sort of like self-help. And then, of course, there's those academic skills as well. So um, I I know sometimes parents sort of get hung up on like an age and whatnot. And I mean, in my experience, and I'd love to know what your thoughts are, Christy, I find that um, there no one can make that decision, and like it's really up to a parent to
mm,
make that decision. But if I had to say like a range, because I don't think it's like at this state age, then that's great. I feel
mm,
like sort of like between that sort of 5 and a half is generally a pretty good time to start. I've definitely taught and had many kids who start around that 4.5 mark, and I can see why their parents made that decision for them.
mm.
um, and then, I don't know, what are your thoughts on sort of starting school, the age and whatnot? I know it's a bit of a controversial topic, but I just do think, like, thinking about the individual child, the stage that your child's at, and sort of not focusing too much on the age.
Yeah. I think that there's a lot of factors that go into a parent making that decision. And I think one of the big factors sometimes, if it's possibly an only child or the last child, does mum need to go back to work? And these are the
Mm,
practicalities as parents that
yes.
we need to be thinking about. So sometimes I think that that takes priority and sways the decision a little bit more. If we're not talking about that sort of variable, I mean, I have taught kids when I was in the classroom, and I specifically remember this one beautiful, I'm going to call him a baby because he felt like a baby, and he was 4.5, and he was way too young to be at school.
Mm,
He wasn't engaging. He was rolling around, and he was so beautiful. I was helping him with his pencil grip one time, and he just started, playing with my rings, like just a very baby sort of young vibe. And I thought, this kid's not ready for school. And it was just, he just saw out the year, and then he ended up doing prep again, or the first year of schooling again. So there's always that option as well to, in that circumstance, I guess. But I tend to think, if you can wait, then it's probably better, unless your child is like busting at the seams to get out and to get into the world and to get into school. I think that's always better to err on the side of caution and wait if you can, particularly for
mm,
boys, because we know that they develop slower than girls.
yeah.
And sometimes they might be more ready if we give them another year. But like I said, there's lots of variables to take into consideration there.
Yeah, I definitely agree with those sentiments, and yeah, have definitely had similar children who started 4.5 as well. Who you just think another year of like outside play,
Mm,
cuddles with parents, and just taking things at a slower pace, having shorter days, would just be really powerful for them, and just make their schooling experience a lot smoother. But as you say again, like you know what? Sometimes logistically, financially,
yeah.
finding a space in a sort of a preschool or a kindergarten here in Queensland, or um, yeah, just the sort of those aspects can be really challenging for parents.
Mm, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so let's get into our 5 tips. So my first tip was around that sort of fine motor. So there's like those fine motor, gross motor, those physical skills.
Yep.
So when a child starts school, they're going to be, probably from day one, picking up their pencil, learning how to write their name, or if they already know how to write their name, using
Yep.
scissors, using a glue stick, doing that. But before we can sort of get to that point, we need
Yep.
to sort of strengthen those muscles in their hands. And I know that some parents go, well, my child doesn't like writing or they don't like picking up a pencil. And I go,
Mm.
that's okay. We don't have to start with a pencil. We can start with a paintbrush
Yep.
or a short piece of chalk. If
Yep.
you think about a short piece of chalk that's, say, like half the length of your pinky finger,
Mm.
naturally, you're gonna pick that up sort of like in your
Mm.
pencil grip. So even like a golf size or like IKEA size pencil is a
Yep.
great way to start something
Yep.
short. If they don't want chalk or a paintbrush or whatnot, and they love sticks, great, pick up a stick and draw it in the sand,
Yes.
you know,
Yeah,
um
or in the dirt. Yep. Mhm.
Exactly. Putting shaving foam in a snap-lock bag and, making patterns and shapes with like a cotton tip or with your finger, um, writing doesn't just have to be with a pencil. Drawing
Yeah.
doesn't have to be with a pencil. I know some parents go, "My child doesn't like coloring in," and, that's coloring in. They're gonna be coloring in probably every day at school, like for, an activity or whatnot. Um, and if they don't like coloring in, that's fine. Let's start with a scribble. Like I've seen it sort of like sometimes for my son, I'll draw the tree trunk and then I just want you to scribble the leaves. Let's scribble, you know? So I
Yep.
just think like just step it back, okay?
Mm.
Um,
Can I
and
say
then
something before you go on, Zoe?
yeah,
About pencil grip. So
yeah.
we know that when kids are ready to hold the pencil, and
Mm,
I cringe when I see kids holding it the wrong way because I know that coming from that grade 3 remediation point, we've got a lot of kids that get stuck with odd pencil grips, which end up
mm,
cramping the hand and tiring and causing
yeah.
problems later on down the track. And it's really, really hard to change. It's almost like, when your mum told you if you make a silly face and the wind changes, you'll be stuck that way. That's how I see pencil grip as well. So how do you suggest that parents sort of ensure that they are making sure that their child is holding the pencil the right way when they're ready to do so?
How I've sort of approached it, Christy, is I will sort of just instinctively like watch what it feels natural to a child, let them have a go, and then I'll say, um, and then I might make a comment about, like, how something felt, like, if they had their arm out like a chicken wing sort of thing
Mhm.
and, like, I go, "Did your arm get really tired poking out like that? Oh, how
Yeah.
about we try putting our arm down this time? Alright, how
Yeah.
does that feel?" Like, just sort of, like, gently guiding them and then going, "You know how you're
Mm.
holding your a pencil up really high? Let's try moving it down. How does that feel?" And, putting something soft in the palm of their hand, so, like a tissue or a pom-pom or a cotton bud, just something that they can sort of hold on to so that their fingers have got a job.
Yeah.
I feel like they were sort of like my sort of go-to things, but yeah, starting with something shorter, and just observing what they're doing and sort of connecting that back to, like, how their body feels.
Yeah, I love that. That's great. Mm.
Yeah, and then, my second tip is about yeah, my next 2 tips are sort of like building those like pre-reading skills. So pre-reading meaning like before your child is learning to read, what skills are going to be a really help to build a strong foundation for when your child is starting to read. So something that I think is really undervalued and it's something that I'm very mindful of is even as a parent today is building my child's knowledge bank. So like what they
Yes.
know about a variety of topics.
Yeah,
'Cause
so important.
it's not just going to help them with learning with reading books and comprehending because the whole reason we read is to understand what we've read.
Mhm.
And we can't understand what we've read until we know about a variety of topics.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, expanding our knowledge bank, so that can just be about when we're reading a book and we're, you know, um, finding out new information about different things, or you're in the car. Like yesterday, for example, I was in the car with my son, and he's 3, loving trucks. And every time he sees a truck, he always makes a comment on it. And I saw a dump truck yesterday that had a cover on it. And so I started talking to him about why trucks would have a cover on it. What could be in the truck? It's because, if it's got sand or dirt in it, they don't want it to blow out onto the road and whatnot. So it's about building their knowledge bank about things that they're interested in, and things also that maybe they're not interested in just yet, and sort of like exposing them to new ideas and just having conversations about things, showing them photos, showing them videos, going to new places. Um, I think is really powerful, because whilst the books sort of in prep, and that their first year of school might be quite narrow in like different subject areas, like when they start getting into sort of older grades and they start learning about different things, and a wide range of topics, that's usually like a bit of a stumbling block for children. And
Yeah.
it also will help them in other subject areas, like particularly with science. Like I noticed that the kids who excelled in science had a great large knowledge bank about things all around the world, and about animals and the environment and whatnot.
Mhm.
Um, and then my third tip is about developing oral language. So their spoken skills, because when they start school, it's not just about showing what they know, it's about telling them what they know, telling their teacher what they know, and explaining their reasoning. And so I used to always say about like the magic word. My magic word was because. And so, when we're explaining something out loud, we had to sort of say because, and we needed to, I had this expectation of we speak in sentences.
You're
Um,
expanding then.
yeah, that's right. Like,
Mm.
for example, something that we might have done is like create a little habitat out of a shoebox. And if they had chosen animals, say they created a habitat for a crocodile, and they were explaining to me about their habitat, or their creation.
Mhm.
And then I'd say, so tell me about your habitat. And they might say, this is the water. And then it's like, okay, but like, how can we expand on this? I've put water in my habitat because crocodiles need water, because that's where they live, and they like hiding under the water, so that, just being able
Yeah.
to like expand on that.
Yeah,
Um,
because that's a direct, pre-writing skill to be able to form those concepts and ideas, because that's the first step, that what we need to do before we actually get to the point later on when we have to transfer that down onto paper.
yes, exactly. Get your kids talking more. Get
Mm.
them, and I feel like I channel my inner toddler. I ask why. I go, why?
Why is the sky
Like, I
blue?
I put the I turn the tables back on them and go, "Hang on a second, I wanna know why." And then I ask the second why, like, "Explain it, give me your reasoning." And I just find that that is really what's gonna help, and also modeling yourself. How do you need to model that oral language, those verbal reasoning skills to your child over and over and over again every single day, because if you don't do it, then chances are your child's not gonna do it either.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
that's great. Mm.
yeah. And then so my fourth tip is about emotions, and I know that this is something that, um, a lot of parents might be worried about, is going, "Oh, how's my child going to go emotionally and whatnot?" And I just want to also let parents know that each day adults go through a variety of emotions. We're happy, we're calm, we're angry, we're frustrated, we're disappointed, and whatnot. And what we do is over time, we sort of develop this toolbox of going, you know what? If I'm disappointed about something, like I was disappointed about something yesterday, I go, what am I going to do? Okay, I'm going to talk to my husband. I'm going to make myself a cup of tea. I'm just going to have 5 minutes to myself. Like we pull on like a variety of strategies and whatnot.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that with emotions, there's sort of like this thoughts that like, you know, adults don't know how to self-regulate, so why would we expect children to? Like, that sort of thing, and I just think, well, actually, adults who can't self-regulate or struggle to, it's because they haven't been taught,
Yes.
and, um, this is a learned skill.
Mm,
This is a taught skill.
mm.
And when I think about self-regulation and, like, developing those, not self-regulation, I think, like, emotional regulation, those emotional
Right.
regulation skills, I think
Mm,
about that, like, infinity symbol.
yeah.
And this is what I do as a parent, and this is what I would do as a teacher as well, is that I think about, like, on one side of the infinity symbol is, like, co-regulation, regulating with your child and then validating their emotions as well. And the infinity symbol's there because I go, "You're gonna be just doing this over and over every time," you know,
Mm, mm,
forevermore, whether they're in primary school, high school, they're an adult, you know. This is a continual work in progress, but
mhm,
my emotions is that I wanted parents to know that it is normal for your child and expected that they will have setbacks, they will have tough times at school, and being able to sort of develop those skills for their emotional toolbox that are sort of school appropriate. So that could be, you know, going back to developing that oral language of, like, naming how they feel. So that comes with the parent kind of helping them,
mm,
giving
mm,
those verbal tools and going, "Well, what can we do? Can you say, 'I need help. I need to take a break. I'm sad. Can I get a drink of water? Can I work with a buddy?'" Like, that's why those sort of speaking skills are so important.
mhm.
Um, and I just think that usually I find that usually kids cope really well. Most kids can sort of manage those emotions, and they're very age appropriate when they start school. There's always maybe like one or two children who find that they need a lot of individualized support because they're hurting others or they're hurting themselves. And that I find, parents will find out that that's usually when there needs to be that intervention that happens and, closer conversations with the teacher and whatnot. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah, and I think before you move on, I think that that is actually one of the things that schools are doing quite well in terms of making sure that kids are checking in with their emotions. The zones of regulations is a program
Yeah.
that is in most schools now, and kids can identify whether what zone, what color they're in. So if they're in the green zone, that means they're happy, ready to learn, all good. And if they're in the red, sorry, the what is it, yellow or orange zone? Haven't done it
They've
for a
got the
while.
yellow zone, which is like frustrated, you know, bored,
Getting
silly.
to the point of
Yeah.
heading towards that red
Yeah.
zone, which is like, the too late. This is like the meltdown stage. This is the anger.
Yeah.
This is the so if we can intervene and help those kids be able to speak about what their needs are when they're in that, is it orange or yellow? I've already forgotten.
It's in the yellow. Yeah.
In that yellow zone, then the idea is that we can prevent them from going into that red zone. And from my perspective, having an autistic child, this was a big part of our world in the first couple of years of primary school, because there was a lot of physical stuff going on, and there was a lot of, it was going from green to red very quickly, and we were just bypassing that middle part.
Yeah.
So often, if there are those significant issues in terms of emotional regulation at school, it's probably going to be due to a neurodivergent brain difference that's going on for that particular
Yeah.
child.
Yeah.
And before we move on, does separation anxiety come into this sort of tip in terms of emotion? Because that's another thing that we struggled with, which was separation anxiety. And when the child actually leaves the parent, it can be very, very difficult. How can we maybe prepare? I know you're just doing your quick five, but I'd love
Yeah.
to know your tips on that.
I know that is such a valid point because I think that the separation anxiety is really tough on parents.
Yeah.
And, from a teacher's point of view, it I just see the hell that some kids put their parents through, and then, like, soon as they walk away within 2 minutes, it's like, "I'm here, fine, let's get on with the day, happy, la, la,
Mm.
la, la, la."
Mhm. Yeah.
And I just think, "Oh my goodness, these poor parents had such a rough morning thinking, um, from a tough drop off. And I just think the preparation is key, the consistency is key, and something that I implemented, that sort of ties into this, is social stories.
Yeah.
So, I remember my first year in prep. I remember the first day of teaching prep. Um, I was nearly in tears by second lunch because I thought, "Oh my goodness, like, so many
Mm.
transitions, so many routines. This is so overwhelming for kids. I'm just
Yeah.
like a deer in the headlights. This is so full on." And I remember saying to the other prep teacher, I said, "Next year, we are making a social story." So
Mm.
fast forward a year when we did, like, the transition events of where parents and children come in and whatnot. I made a social story and I used real photos. So
Yeah.
everything down to, this is our classrooms. Sometimes we sit on the carpet, sometimes we sit at our tables.
Mhm.
This is the library. We have our library bag. This is where we line up. This is where the bike racks are if you ride a scooter to school.
Yep.
Here's the hall where we have assembly every Tuesday afternoon. um, this is your teacher, this is the teacher aide. If you need help, this is who you go to. Just like going through all of the things, the places, the spaces, the play areas, about when the bell rings, everything they can anticipate. So the
Mm.
next year came around, we gave out at the transition event, we talked about it with parents, we talked about it with the kids, and we said, keep it on your bookshelf, read it regularly over the Christmas and school holidays from now on. Christy, I couldn't believe how much of a difference it made when the next year
Mm.
started.
Mm.
That bell rang on the first day of school, and the whole class came over, and they knew, they put their lunchbox away, where they stand to come into class. Like, it saved probably, I would say, 4 weeks of, like, having to step out every single transition and different, um, procedures and whatnot at school. So I
Mm.
just think social stories are really powerful.
Mm.
Having photos of things. So for that separation anxiety, if your child's experienced severe separation anxiety, I'd be talking about, like, making a little book, like having a photo of the place where you drop off, having a
Yes.
photo of, like, who's dropping off. Is it
Mm.
is it grandma on Mondays, and are you going to after school care on a Wednesday afternoon? Um, are you is there another sibling? Are they waiting for you? Like, just thinking about all those, situations and having real photos and just making it into a story first person,
Yes.
about your
Yes.
child.
Mm. So give
Um,
us a quick example, Zoe, of how a parent might make that. So this is my
yeah,
school on the first page, and then a picture
yeah,
from the front. This is all stuff that parents can do, right? You don't have
yeah.
to get the teacher to do it.
No, no, no. It wouldn't, I mean, I would hope that schools would be able to provide us to a
Provide.
social story or not, but if you're making
Even
a
just pictures.
individualized one
Mm.
for, separation anxiety for your child,
Mm.
I would make it on PowerPoint. I feel like the text boxes and inserting photos is just so much easier.
Yeah.
Um, and you can sort of print it out on an A4 as an A4 book, or 2 to a page.
Mhm.
Take real photos when you're at the transition events, at the school. Be mindful, don't include other children in the photos, just you, just your child. Be mindful about confidentiality and whatnot. Um, and even if it's not so separation anxiety, it's about using the toilets or whatnot. Try and grab a quick photo of what the cubicle looks like, or that there's a urinal or whatnot. Like, anything that your child might be a little bit unsure about.
Mm.
I feel like having real photos, and talking about them and just prepping them in advance is really, really powerful.
Mm.
Um, and then when you do sort of say goodbye, I feel like it's like you have your drop off spot, you have your little routine about what you say. When mummy gives you a hug and says, "I love you, have a beautiful day. I'll be here at 3 o'clock. I'll be waiting here, and I'll see you." Like, tell them who's picking them up, where are they picking them up,
Mm.
and then the follow through is important. Like, even, and using that proximity. So if you're having a hard time saying good, if if your child's still having a really hard time, move closer to the teacher aide, move closer to the teacher, give them a wave, pass them over to another adult.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah.
so, and then, you know, check in with your facial expressions, because I've seen it before where parents look really anxious and worried,
Yeah.
and that tells your child, well, if mummy or daddy or whoever's dropping off is anxious or worried, um, then maybe my classroom's not safe. You know, your
Mm.
facial expressions are really important. So
Mm.
even if you're not feeling strong on the inside, and you go and, you know, I've had a few tears in the childcare car park too. um, yeah, sort of just check in with your facial expressions, and just sort of like be that sturdy leader for your child,
Yeah.
and also be open to asking for help, going to the teacher and going, you know, I'm finding drop off really tricky. Is there something that you know, that we can work together um, to help my child with a smoother morning? Because I'm just finding drop off personally really hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, I need your help.
Mm. Zoe, do you know that book, The String? And it's all about the parent and the child, The
Yeah,
Invisible String.
yeah,
Yeah.
yes,
That was a good one for me to read with my kids. And one other quick strategy that we did that I found helpful for my second child was we did a little heart on each of our hands, and
right.
then he would go off to school, and then I said to him, whenever you miss me or whenever you want to connect with me, just press on the heart. And when I
Mhm.
picked him up, he was like, "Did you feel it, Mum?" I was like, "Yeah, I felt it."
Aw, that's so
So
sweet.
yeah, but
Yes,
it's
something.
trial and error, I think, too. Yeah,
That's right. You've got to find something that clicks with your child, that
yeah,
connects with them.
yeah,
You know, for some kids, I noticed that a parent would write a little message, like might write on a banana or write a little
yeah,
post-it note and put it in the lunchbox. Just something that they go, "Oh, my parents still thinking about me, and we're still connected during the school day." But yeah, the Invisible String's a really nice book, a book for
yeah,
that.
yeah,
Um, and then my last one, which is um, is about growth mindset, which the term growth mindset kind of like, you know, it kind of irks me a little bit, but I think that it's really powerful. One of my favorite books that I recommend to all parents is Grit by Angela Duckworth. I love this book. And something that she mentions about how to like develop that sort of growth mindset, that grit in our children, is that when is doing things that are just a little bit out of their comfort zone and a little bit out of their ability. So just not too far out of their ability, but just a little bit out. And then
mhm,
prep them in advance and go, this could get a bit tricky. Like if I'm building something with Duplo with my son, and it's, you know, connecting pieces that might be a bit tricky, I go, this could get a little bit tricky. But this is important. This is how we do it, you know, modeling it.
yeah,
And then, you know, also having this expectation of going, I'm not giving up on you, you know, and having those thoughts of going, this is important. I'm here to help you. I know you can do this. Like being willing as a parent and going, I know you can do this. I'm not giving up on you. This is important.
yeah, yeah,
And let's work it out together. Like a
yeah,
strategy that I used every day in the classroom is like, you know, it's just that general teaching strategy. I do, we do, you do. But I
mhm,
saw something brilliant the other week, because we assume that it's like, okay, I do something, I model it, and then we do it together. Let's do it
mm,
together. And then you do it, and then you'll be fine. But
mm,
actually, let's step it back. Let's go,
mm,
I do it, we 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 do it, like 10 times, 20
yeah,
times, 30 times over.
until
And
you're
then
ready.
you do it.
Yeah,
Like, I've had to sort of adjust my mindset as a parent going, I'm not teaching my child this once, I'm teaching them 20 times over
yeah,
to be able to get them to they can do it. Yeah.
independent. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, 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 that's so true. I think that, you've given us such practical tips that really it's just encapsulated what you can do. I can't really think of much else. Like what you've
Yeah.
just said here has been really comprehensive, but also really practical and simple to implement at home. So we've got fine motor, vocab to prepare them for comprehension later on, but
Yeah.
oral language, they need to be able to speak for themselves.
Mhm.
That's also a pre-writing skill, but it's also very important with communication when they're becoming more independent. We've got emotional regulation as well, can be a tough one for some of our kiddos, but
Mhm.
continuing to work on it, preparing them, and then hopefully being able to work with the school if there are some issues
Yeah.
that persist. And then that growth mindset and stepping kids gently out of their comfort zone, one little bit at a time. And that is growth. That's how we grow. I mean, I know for me, I have been modeling to my kids about some things that I've been doing recently that's stepping myself out of my comfort zone. Exhibit A, the podcast. It's out of my comfort zone, but now I feel comfortable with it. But at the start, I was saying to the kids, when you feel nervous about something and when you feel uncomfortable, what that means is that you're actually growing. That is stepping out of your comfort zone, and that is how we grow. And it's the same no matter what age we are, whether we're young and getting ready for school or whether we're in our 40s and starting a
Yeah.
podcast. It's the same thing. This is humanity, isn't it? This is us as humans, and it's good to explicitly explain that to kids.
Everything new is hard at first. I say that to myself every day. But yeah, like what you're doing, Christy, showing your boys about starting a podcast, getting uncomfortable, doing something new, that is so powerful in being a learner and going, this is really hard for me, but I'm going to figure it out, and I'm going to keep persisting. And I think as parents, like getting in touch with being a learner again, doing a new skill, starting from zero, is really powerful. I noticed um, that I forgot to mention about phonological awareness in the oral
Yes.
language. And
Yes, yes,
I
yes.
know that you have a great podcast episode. I think it's is maybe your second episode, all about phonological and phonemic awareness. And I wanted to let parents know that I have a free guide that I think you might be linking in our show notes. And in that free guide, I actually have 5 days worth of phonological awareness activities that relate to counting words, rhyming, syllable tapping. So it's like identifying syllables and that first sound awareness, like two words that start with the same sound, and some general activities that they can do.
Mm,
Phonological awareness, I recommend that they listen to that podcast. It's a listening skill. It's just done with their ears. They can do it with their eyes closed. This is something that can be added on to storybook time just before bedtime, just something quick and easy. And it is what I wish I knew at the beginning of my teaching career.
mm,
Do not underestimate how powerful phonological awareness is. So,
mm,
in my free guide, I have 5 steps to jumpstart your child's reading success. So, I have that free 5 days worth of phonological awareness in that guide. And also, I wanted to let your audience know about something new that's going to be launching soon that I'm working on. And they can join my wait list. I think you might be linking that
yep.
in my show notes as well. Is that am creating a educational play guide all about over 60 activities, simple, easy activities that with resources that parents would likely have at home that they can do to prepare their children for school. So not just academically, it's talking about emotional skills, social skills, developing those oral language skills and those pre-reading skills, like I've mentioned today.
Mm.
No jelly or slime in sight. I'm not going to do that to you. Nobody's got time for that. Um, and um, Also, if you're in Brisbane, I have something new, exciting, starting in term 4 in person. So, for any listeners who have children that haven't started school yet, I'm actually going to be starting an educational play group
Oh,
um,
cool.
here in
Yeah.
Brisbane in term 4 in Norman Park. So, yeah, stay tuned for that.
That's exciting. That's really exciting. I'm gonna link all of that, Zoe. I'm gonna put the link for your freebie in there. That sounds incredible. Something that
Thank you.
parents can just download and get started with and have a
Yeah.
taste of have a taste of it all. So phonological and phonemic awareness is the biggest predictor of reading success. If kids don't have phonological and phonemic awareness, the ability to listen to sounds, identify sounds in words, and to be able to blend and break sounds up in words, so segmenting, then if you don't have that, you're not reading. And that's how we
Mhm.
find that a lot of the kids that come to see us at All Kids Can, they have weak phonological and phonemic awareness. Dyslexia is a phonological core deficit. So that just means that they don't
Mhm.
naturally pick up the ability to work with sounds in our language. It has to be
Yeah.
explicitly taught. And if we can start it right from the beginning, right from those early ages, preschool, that is ideal. And I have to say, I probably said it in that podcast that you're referring to, episode 2, but it was I kind of grieve for that time with my kids, my 2 boys, because it was one of the most beautiful times that I had with them, was developing their phonological and phonemic awareness. It sounds a bit geeky, but it was a really beautiful way to connect with them. And we just used to play with it, and it's play, and it's nothing serious. We don't have letters, we don't have anything. It's all
Mm.
oral. And I
Yeah.
would say things like, at the beginning, perhaps you might work with first sounds. What's the first sound in, say, like sheep? Can you think of it? And they go shh like this. And it was a fun, like, sort of backwards and forwards response thing. And it honestly, I think, helped us with our connection as well,
Mm.
from parent to child. So it's a beautiful thing to do. So I would definitely go and download your freebie. Thank you for offering that to the listeners, Zoe. Zoe,
You're
if
very
people
welcome.
Thank you. If people want to come and connect with you, you're on Instagram, you've got a Facebook group. Tell us a little bit more about how they can do that.
Yes, you can find me on Instagram. That's where I'm the social media that I frequent the most. And my Instagram handle is at educate. So EDZOCATE.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for your time, Zoe. I'm looking forward to hearing about how your groups, is it going to be groups for at Norman Park?
Yes, so
Yeah.
I'm going to start with one time slot in
Yeah.
term 4 with the hope of opening up more time slots in 2025. But
Okay.
yes, for everyone and anyone, ages 0 to 5. Um, and we've got a beautiful space, indoor and outdoor, like a big outdoor gated playground. So we're going to be doing outdoor activities and then sort of moving indoors as well and doing some sort of indoor activities as well.
Sounds like a
Lots
lot of fun. Yeah.
of connection. And, I just was thinking about how I can tie in what I love about teaching, but also with helping parents. And it just made sense that I start a educational playgroup.
Yeah. Love it, love it, love it. Thanks again, Zoe, for your time. And I hope that the listeners can go and check you out now.
Thank you. See you later.
You've been listening to the All Kids Can podcast. If you like what you've heard on today's episode, I would be grateful if you could take a minute to leave a rating or a review. Thank you for helping us grow and be visible to parents who can benefit from the information in this show. Lastly, if you're not already part of the All Kids Can community, sign up at our website for your free weekly newsletter, links to new podcast episodes, and up-to-date information on our offerings. Head to allkidscan.com.au to sign up and learn more.